Connor Zilisch wins once again, but then takes a nasty fall in victory lane, and Austin Hill is back doing Austin Hill things. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove Instant Reaction. Unfortunately, it has been an ugly weekend at Watkins Glen International thus far. On track, truck race yesterday, so many spins, so many incidents. Field couldn't get past the bus stop, multiple restarts in a row. And today in the Xfinity race, a couple of hard crashes, vicious impacts, poor racecraft. And of course, Connor Zilisch. He gets the win. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but unfortunately took a nasty fall in victory lane as he was getting out of his race car. Before we get started here, because I do have a lot of other things to talk about, first and foremost, I want to send my thoughts, my prayers, my well wishes to Connor Zilisch. He was stretchered away from victory lane, was taken to the infield care center where I saw reporter Dustin Long said as he was being put into the ambulance says that he was sitting up. So that is an encouraging sign. The CW reported that Zilisch was speaking to medical personnel who were on the scene immediately. I'm not going to share the clip. It was jarring enough to see it once live on the broadcast. So just want to begin the show by saying that I really hope Connor Zilisch is okay. I'm not going to speculate on his status for tomorrow's race. He qualified, I think, 25th for the Cup race tomorrow, was scheduled to run that event triple duty this weekend. I'm not going to speculate on his condition, but I will at the end of this video or in the comments below share any updates that we may receive here later this afternoon, later this evening. But it's just an ugly weekend, unfortunately. Ugly. That's the best way I could possibly describe it. I do want to praise Connor Zilisch. He is continuing to put together an incredible rookie season. Not only did he just score his 11th consecutive top 5 in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, this is now his 6th win of the season, his 2nd consecutive win at Watkins Glen. He was the class of the field pretty much all day. Even when he got put behind, he was able to make passes, work his way through the field, and retake the lead, drive off with the victory. An incredible talent, one of the best young talents this sport has seen in the past several decades. Obviously a tremendous road course racer. He was part of one of the big incidents today, battling Shane van Gisbergen for the lead late. Zilisch, to his credit, I thought was very patient with SVG for several laps. He ran Van Gisbergen down and you would show him the nose, but made little to no contact, raced his teammate very, very cleanly, showed him a lot of respect, the same way SVG, I thought, showed Zilisch respect racing for the win at Sonoma a few weeks back. Remember, before that, early in the summer, SVG kind of sideswiped Zilisch for the win at Chicago. He paid some respect to Zilisch at Sonoma. Zilisch returned the favor here at Watkins Glen until he didn't. That's the best way I could put it. Feeling pressure, I think, from Austin Hill and Michael McDowell closing in on them. Zilisch made a move to the outside, entering turn 6, then overdrove it a bit, went way wide as he came back off the runoff area. Clips SVG and sends Van Gisbergen hard into the turn 7 wall. Huge crash there for Shane van Gisbergen. Junior Motorsports teammates, Trackhouse teammates making contact there. Again, ton of credit to Zilisch for being patient up to that point. But in my opinion, this incident, he got a little impatient, I think. SVG did not leave Zilisch a ton of space there coming off of turn 6, but also Connor Zilisch put himself way out of the groove by overcooking it into turn 6. I think he has a responsibility to re-enter the racing groove a bit more safely. He made a sharp left turn there when, in my opinion, he still had a few feet of asphalt to play with. Shane van Gisbergen did not give him a ton of space there, but he did give him a lane, in my opinion. It was tight. It was going to be tight, high chance of contact. The broadcast mentioned neither spotter probably had a great view of that area. I'm not saying this is all on Connor Zilisch being reckless, but in my opinion, he could have re-entered the racing groove better than he did. That did not need to be a hard spin and a huge crash for Shane van Gisbergen. So unfortunate that happened because they were putting on a heck of a show before then, and they've put on a great show, battling each other several times this this year, Chicago, Sonoma, today. Two great road course racers, again, at very different points in their career. I've talked about this before, but Shane van Gisbergen is 36 years old. He's from New Zealand. He's coming over to America to try and make a career out of stock car racing, while Connor Zilisch was racing go-karts in Europe a few years ago, just 19 years old. One of the oldest rookies we've seen in a long time versus one of the youngest rookies we've seen in a long time. Both tremendous road course racers, so it'll be fun to watch them going forward. Today's incident was avoidable in my opinion, but it was the result of two racers not giving an inch there in the closing laps once the going got tough. So great win for Connor Zilisch, but I mentioned that incident because it wasn't a squeaky clean incident. We have to be completely fair here. I think Zilisch is a really, really talented race car driver, but he, like other young drivers, occasionally shows impatience. Circuit of the Americas, I felt like earlier this year, was an example where he got behind and then was trying to overdrive the car, getting into his competitors, trying to make up for that track position. He learned from that today. Again, he was way more patient today until he wasn't, until this slight misjudgment, in my opinion. So that was one big incident that happened today. Connor Zilisch, Shane van Gisbergen. Zilisch goes on to get the win. Behind him, Austin Hill, back from suspension, back to doing Austin Hill things. Quick reminder, 2 weeks ago at high-speed Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Austin Hill turned left and hooked Eric Almirola head-on into the fence. He was penalized 5 laps in the moment, and then a couple days later, NASCAR handed out a 1-week suspension, which obviously meant Hill had to sit out last weekend's race at Iowa, but it also meant that Hill would have to forfeit all playoff points ahead of the postseason coming up in a few weeks. So a pretty significant penalty, one that was certainly meant to send a message. I'm not sure that message was received. And I say that for a couple of reasons. First, I looked at these comments. Shout out to Dustin Albino, writing for NASCAR.com, who caught up with Austin Hill before today's race and asked him about the Eric Almirola incident, asked him about the suspension. And Austin Hill, let me read you guys some of these quotes. He maintains that it was a total accident. He continues to say that he did not intentionally run into Eric Almirola at Indianapolis. This was one of his quotes. From my standpoint, it was a full racing incident, a full racing deal. I pleaded my case to NASCAR and everyone. I told them everything that went down, showed them the SMT, showed them that Creed and I were together before making contact with Almirola. From my standpoint, it was fully unintentional. Oh my God, not to dredge up something from 2 weeks, but it's somewhat relevant to what I'm about to say. Again, look at the white gloves. He hangs the left towards Almirola well before any contact with Sheldon Creed. He's just talking nonsense here. It wasn't one of those lose your mind moments and turn to the left. The video says otherwise, Austin. It feels like not only is he gaslighting us, he somehow gaslit himself. He's convinced himself over the past couple of weeks that the Indy deal was a total fluke accident. Only Austin Hill truly deep down knows what happened, but the video. So that was in the back of my head coming into this race today. And then I'm watching the race today, and Hill's running great. He's up there in the top 5, again, battling with SVG and Connor Zilisch for the win in the closing laps. There's this one restart here where he drops in line behind Zilisch and gives Zilisch a bump. Just knocks him up out of the groove, costs Connor a few positions, and I'm like, okay, that's Austin Hill being Austin Hill. Honestly, while I feel like that move shows a lack of self-awareness, I kind of appreciate the commitment, Austin Hill does not give a damn what other people seem to think. Yeah, I just got suspended for aggressive driving. First week back, I'm going to drive through the leader into turn 1. That's what he does. That's how he's always been. He's always been extremely aggressive. I kind of respect Austin Hill for just committing to it, being himself, not backing down. I can respect that, but what I really can't respect is both aggressive and dumb driving simultaneously. That's when things get dangerous, because shortly after that contact with Zilisch, Hill is back a few positions racing with Michael McDowell for third. Through the carousel, he swings out wide behind McDowell and then, hooks McDowell into the fence. Huge crash breaks out. Massive impact for McDowell, for Zilisch, other drivers involved. Now, I'm sure a lot of fans saw that incident and their immediate reaction was, there goes Austin Hill, intentionally hooking someone once again. I don't think that was on purpose. I think Austin Hill was just being himself. Again, being extremely aggressive. Unfortunately, this time he was also being dumb. I didn't see any contact between Hill and McDowell earlier in the race that would have, suggested this was an intentional retaliation move. I just think Austin Hill, for whatever reason, thought he could force a gap where a gap did not exist. Like he forgot that, hey, the road runs out and becomes grass, becomes a guardrail rather quickly. Maybe don't try to force an opening here where nobody seems to force openings. That everyone knows that is a high-speed, dangerous section of racetrack. That's not a passing zone. Austin Hill wasn't next to Michael McDowell. He was behind Michael McDowell, swung wide, and tried to squeeze into a gap at high speeds. It was a dumb, questionable move at best. Dumb, frankly, is a nice way to describe it. Obviously, I'm not a race car driver. Corey LaJoie is a race car driver and has made his fair share of aggressive mistakes in the past. He chimed in saying, quote, "It doesn't matter if this was on purpose or not. Hill couldn't have been in a worse position to force any leverage there. You can use your head and lift." Michael McDowell's Cup Series crew chief Travis Peterson chimed in as well. "Guess it takes more than one race off to learn where your bumpers are and how to not use them to destroy people. Praying our guy isn't too sore or even hurt." Fortunately, Michael McDowell and everyone involved in this crash were able to walk away. McDowell was checked and released from the infield care center, did an interview with the CW, I think handled this incident fairly gracefully. But yeah, Austin Hill, man, he's a talented race car driver, and being aggressive is one thing, but like I said, you can't be aggressive and dumb. That's when you become a danger to yourself and others. And that's why I thought the suspension at Indianapolis for what was both an aggressive and dumb move was fair. And I'm not going to say this was a suspension-worthy incident, because I do not think there was intent there, and NASCAR has set the precedent that intent does matter when choosing to suspend someone. But this is where I feel like NASCAR needs to bring back some form of probation, or this is one of those incidents where I do think NASCAR race control needs to step in the moment and make some of these tough calls. I'm not saying every spin, every bit of contact needs to be penalized, needs to be scrutinized in real time, but something like this that was clearly, to anyone watching, avoidable should come with a penalty. Not a 5-lap penalty, but a tail end of the longest line type penalty. Send Austin Hill to the rear on the ensuing restart. Like, if local short tracks can adopt that kind of officiating, I feel like NASCAR, the NASCAR Cup Series, should be able to do something similar. Again, reserved for egregious moves or misjudgments like this. I would argue Connor Zilisch wrecking Shane van Gisbergen earlier in the race could have been penalized in a similar way. We don't want NASCAR to become Formula One, but we already have no track limits at a place like Watkins Glen, which leads to guys racing full speed close to barriers like this on the edge of the grass. I know that the lawless nature of NASCAR is what makes it appealing to so many, but some rules may not be a bad idea here. Like, someone has to be the adult, step in and rein in some of these bold, boneheaded moves. That's my take, and I've been on this for a while. We've seen plenty of questionable short track moves, road course moves in the past that I felt could have easily been penalized. Again, hey, you caused the wreck, you go to the tail end of the field. Simple calls, I think, that NASCAR should feel empowered to make in the moment, but I also understand the argument of not wanting more officiating. That's why I hesitate with track limits. When they have track limits in the S's at Circuit of the Americas, for example, that's led to some headaches and heartaches, some difficult, frustrating, questionable calls at time. A place like Watkins Glen, where every bit of runoff is paved, it's going to be hard to call all 40 cars every lap through those sections. It would be an adjustment, I should say. It would certainly be an adjustment. So I don't know what the right balance is. All I know is Austin Hill needs to get it together. I'll just say that. He's been very aggressive throughout his career. He's made, in my opinion, some very poor decisions, both on and off the track. And this was yet another example. I don't think he intentionally hooked Michael McDowell, but it was a boneheaded move that could have hurt somebody and did destroy quite a few race cars. It was a terrible moment, a terrible lack of self-awareness, considering you are 1 week removed from a suspension for aggressive driving, for a similarly boneheaded move. Austin Hill's a talented driver, very solid driver, but there's a reason he's pushing 30 and isn't getting a whole lot of Cup Series calls. I think this is part of it. Anyway, that's my quick reaction. I'm going to look real quick. Any updates on Connor Zilich's condition? Because I have to admit, that is that is on the back of my mind. Latest report as of about 7:30 Eastern time. Connor Zilisch has been transported to a local hospital for further evaluation. He is awake and alert. That was a nasty, nasty fall. Really unfortunate, really scary stuff. So hopefully Connor's okay. May not see him in the race car tomorrow. Maybe we will. Hoping for the best. That's all I've got for this instant reaction Watkins Glen Xfinity Series recap. We'll be back tomorrow night after the Cup Series race. I will wrap with this. I want to give a quick shout out. I know it feels trivial in the light of the Zilisch injury and the damage and chaos on the racetrack, but I do want to give a credit to the CW, Adam Alexander, Jamie McMurray, Dylan Welsh, the whole broadcast team. Everything that could get thrown at a broadcast was thrown at them here. Drama on the track, an hour-long red flag, having to interview the guy who caused the red flag, that's tense. Then the Zilisch injury and having to go to commercial, just everything that could get thrown at a broadcast was thrown at them, and I thought Adam Alexander and the rest of the crew handled all of those curveballs with tremendous grace, professionalism. That's the kind of stuff NASCAR and fans should expect from a national media partner. So I do want to give the broadcast credit for handling everything that was thrown at them. But with that being said, that's it. That's my instant reaction to all of the craziness that we saw today at Watkins Glen. I'll see you again tomorrow. Again, well wishes being sent to Connor Zilisch. Hope he's okay. We'll talk again very, very soon.